Yes, it is. It is the David Paul Blumenshine Show, also known as the DPB Show. And you can listen to us here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond on the radio. You can stream us from our app. You can even check us out on Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, and Facebook. We're Facebook Live right now. And once again, the chat is always open. So we want to hear from you. It's important, obviously, to hear what you guys are basically gathering out there in the marketplace of unideas. With text line is always open at 309-451-9299. 309-451-9299. Hey, where is Hillary's indictment on the same charges as Trump? We've got the Illinois Supreme Court upholds JB's unconstitutional gun and magazine ban. That's the case that was brought forth to the Illinois Supreme Court by Representative Dan Calkins. We have Oliver Anthony. I don't know if you guys have heard this song or not yet, but Richmond, north of Richmond. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. Government scientists received over $325 million in royalties from the Chinese and Russian pharma firms over the past decade. We've got impeachment looming. Yes, we do. And then we have a special counsel. And granted, we went into last week with a very slow news week. In fact, Kevin and I, producer Kevin across the way, we're talking about this on Thursday. Relatively a slow news week. In fact, what I had was this craziness in Montgomery, Alabama, at a boat launch where, some overserved pontoon boaters were illegally parked, or at least they were parked in a position where a paddle boat had to dock, and an employee of the paddle boat asked the pontoon captain or the owner of the pontoon boat to please move it so they could dock. And melee ensued. It was craziness. Arrests were made. And of course, it became a huge issue of racism, which it wasn't. It was an issue of overserved drunk boaters. But you know what? That's all for naught, because as we always say around here at Cities 92.9, wait on it, wait on it, wait on it. Friday's going to come, and there's going to be a heck of a news drop, and that's what we have. We have an unbelievable news cycle now with the special counsel, David Weiss, I guess I said Weiss, being appointed by Merrick Garland, which in of itself is going to continue to create the strife that we have. This is never going to go away. For us to believe that, as I said last week on last week's show, that chasm between the Democrats and the Republicans is never going to come together. Those people that are talking about unity, unfortunately, as much as we can pray for unity, we can hope for unity, we can wish for unity, it's not going to happen until we see some symmetry in what is happening on a geopolitical level. In fact, I don't think there's any better segue than this particular article done by Front Page. The author of it, or the writer, is Daniel Greenfield. And he basically comes right out of the chute and says, on December 12th, 2016, or he calls it D12, the Hillary Clinton presidential campaign endorsed a call by Christine Pelosi, the daughter of the House Democrat leader, Nancy Pelosi, as well as other electors, to receive an intelligence briefing on how Russian interference was performed to help Donald Trump get elected, from Obama's Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper. Hillary Clinton and her senior campaign officials were aware that they had concocted the lie that the Russians had gotten Trump elected, outsourced it to a former British intelligence operative, Christopher Steele, who produced the infamous Steele dossier, and distributed it through the FBI, and were exploiting it to subvert the Electoral College and hijack the presidential election. The Clinton campaign was endorsing a move to influence members of the Electoral College to set aside their duty and corrupt the electoral votes. Electors are bound to vote in accordance with the ballot count. There was no purpose to a briefing on the conspiracy theories that were manufactured by Clinton campaign except to persuade them to corrupt the vote. The Wall Street Journal correctly described the move as an electoral college coup. Pelosi's daughter and other Democrat electors were requesting a briefing on all investigative findings, as these matters directly impact the core factors in our deliberations of whether Mr. Trump is fit to serve as president of the United States. And they were asking it from Clapper, who would go around pushing the Steele dossier and defending its conspiracy theories as based on facts. Hang with me. I know this sounds a little bit straight out of the article, Front Page Magazine. I'm going to put this up on our Facebook page so you can too go back and revisit it. But there's a lot of nuggets inside of this. Clapper, using similar language to the Democrat electors, would describe Trump as unfit. The Clinton campaign endorsed this proposed electoral college coup by claiming that the electors' letter raises very grave issues involving our national security. Electors have a solemn responsibility under the Constitution, and we support their efforts to have their questions addressed. The attempted coup was backed by the Clinton campaign, members of Congress, and assorted celebrities, from Michael Moore to Martin Sheen. An Atlantic article by an anti-Israeli activist, Peter Beinart, contended that the Electoral College was meant to stop men like Trump from being president. More seriously, House Democrats made the case for the coup and a power grab. They went on and quoted Representative Jim Himes, Democrat, Connecticut. I do think the Electoral College should choose someone other than Donald Trump to be president. That will lead to a fascinating legal issue, but I would rather have a legal issue, a complicated legal problem, than to find out that the White House was now the Kremlin's chief ally. This article goes on, and like I said, I'm going to put it up on our Facebook page for all of you out there, just so you can see information that's never going to be covered by the legacy media, the mainstream media, because ultimately they are just an arm. They're a weapon of the Democrat Party, of the deep state, of the establishment. One of the things I find fascinating about this is there's a quote in here, and it even covers Alexander Hamilton had proposed much more radical remedies in the 1800 election. Some elections, like that of the 1876 and 1888, were simply stolen through various shenanigans. There's a line between legal and illegal shenanigans. Voter fraud, for example, is illegal, while slates of alternate electors and faithless electors are an election issue for the courts to decide. Further on down in the article, one of the best parts about this is it gives a quote that Democrats claim that the exigent threats to democracy entitled them to call for an electoral coup in 2016 and then to criminalize election challenges in 2020, and then perhaps to call for another coup in 2024. But that is how totalitarian regimes and their kangaroo courts function. I have been part of kangaroo courts before. I have seen it demonstrated, not at the level that we're talking about here in the federal government, but even in businesses and in state-run agencies. Kangaroo courts are basically in relation to those who are in power. You're always going to see that. Once again, those people have been hand-selected by the governing powers to hold agency positions. We, and I say we, referring to Darren Bailey and the Darren Bailey campaign, were in a similar position. We knew that if we were to achieve a victory in the gubernatorial campaign of 2022, that there were going to be at least 1,000 appointments that would be made by the governor. into agency positions. This is the underlying piece of the puzzle, and it's a very large puzzle, and it has stemmed all the way back to the Obama administration. That's why, if you're just tuning in here at Cities 92.9, you're wondering where we're going with this. Well, I'll tell you, if they're going to indict Trump for election interference or for basically trying to circumvent a constitutional process with electors, then it's time to also create a symmetry to this chasm that exists between Democrats and Republicans. Right now, we see just one side of the equation basically running the table without any checks and balances, even though we have a constitution that affords everyone due process. But for the most part, Trump has already been basically found guilty of all charges, and the charges are going to continue to come, especially in light of a caucus that's going to happen in January, and they put out the hearing schedule for his indictment, that this most recent indictment, where that's going to line up right with the Iowa caucus. If ever in the history of this country, an organized people cannot see what's happening, it's right before your very eyes. Getting back to what I had mentioned about these agency positions, which I think is a critical point. And these are appointments that are made in all areas of government. Unfortunately, in Illinois, we have a boatload of agency positions. In fact, we have close to 8,000 government units or units of government in Illinois. And we contrast that with a very efficient state like Florida, which has about 1,650 units of government. I always have brought up this point here on the DPB show that Florida has twice as many people population-wise, but yet they have almost 5,300 fewer units of government than Illinois. Illinois is it's no secret. Illinois is run like, the federal government, which the federal government Illinois mirrors the federal government. And that's why there is a push that you're going to see J.B. Pritzker continue to position himself, because I believe that J.B. truly wants to be president someday. And that's going right into the gun ban. This is legislation that would not fly at the federal level. There's no way that JB's unconstitutional gun and magazine ban would pass the mustard through Congress. It just wouldn't happen. Those that are steeped in the judicial process and the legislative process know that this wouldn't fly. But it did in Illinois. And this is why these agency positions are so important, because these agencies, and when it's referred to as kangaroo court, it is kangaroo court, because there's nothing really accomplished that's going to get to the heart of representing the people, representing you and me. And that kind of dovetails into Oliver Anthony, this young man who has come out hot. I mean, you talk about there's nothing that has blown up more in my lifetime. And granted, Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, all of our social media platforms are responsible for that. This didn't exist, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Maybe some other songs would have, but bad times lead to good music. That's not me quoting that. That's my friend Dan Bongino. You can catch Dan every week here from 11 to 2 o'clock. But Dan said it, really hard times, really bad times create great music. And this song from Oliver Anthony, Richmond, North of Richmond, really kind of succinctly puts it. Kangaroo courts aren't there to represent you and me. They're there to represent the people in power. The people who are basically creating the strife in life. There's a reason that there's so much friction in the world today. And it isn't because of the masses of people, the you and me's in the world. It's the people who have been elected, who have been appointed into these agencies, who are creating the friction, the chaos, the distrust, the fear, the anxiety, ultimately the strife. Hey, we're going to continue to hit upon all of these issues, especially the special counsel and this Illinois Supreme Court ruling. We have actually today, there's a picnic going on for the Republican Party where Justice Holder White is going to be speaking. She's the keynote speaker. I hope many of you are headed out to that venue for the McLean County Republican picnic. But we're going to cover that. I'd love to have had her into studio. I know that she probably would refrain from commenting on that case, but it would be good to hear the insights. I'm going to pull up some things from Tom DeVore, share that with you. Obviously, he had a lot to say about the ruling, and we're going to cover as much as we can get to today. Trump is obviously in Iowa. He's shown up and he's running the table again. So, hey, we're going to be back here after break at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Text her on my own text phone. You're still live on Facebook. Thank you. All right, here we go. I was just checking a couple of text messages. Thank you, everyone that's out there in Facebook land. I appreciate you. Yes, if you see me, I'm not sitting today. I'm standing. I felt like I just needed to get up, get vertical. This is something new. I've sat through most of my shows since we have gone live on Facebook, but today I just felt like standing. I probably will wear out after the first hour and will find myself comfortably back in my cozy chair and pull it back over here, lower the mic a little bit. But once again, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment here on Facebook. We're also on Twitter, YouTube, and Rumble. I want to know what you guys think. I mean, about this special counsel, David Weiss, however you want to say the guy's name. The guy has been protecting the Freudian slip, the Biden family, the Obama family, the Biden crime family since 2008. Ironic is that it happened to line up when Barack Obama was in office. But once again, as someone who was appointed, somebody that's been in on the mix from the very beginning, intentionally, the left, the radical left, have for many years have been moving the pieces just so. And we on the right have been playing checkers when they have been playing chess. And now we have found out what that means. We're going to be back on. We'll talk more about that. But thank you again for joining us on the Facebook side of things. Kevin had to remind me that we're on Facebook. And you know what? Sometimes I have to remind myself. My beautiful wife gave me 2 little eyeballs to put up on the camera so I can at least look at the camera so Kevin doesn't have to correct me this week by stating to say eyeballs on the camera. Hey, we appreciate you out there wherever you're listening or viewing us at, whether that be on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, listening to us in your garage as you're sweeping it out, at home, going down the highways and byways of central Illinois. We always appreciate you, and we always say that we couldn't do it without you, and we can't. I cannot be here without you listening to us, participating, being part of the show. I mean, it's what makes this thing work. We know that we're unique when it comes to the media here in Illinois, uh, specifically Central Illinois, that there are very few media sources that cover the news like we do. You're not going to get the feeling that you get from Aldonzo and Dees on the weekend. They're on the Saturday show. Chandler and Swan, Speechless with Kevin Ferris, who's across the way, always producing my show. And I'm sure he's going to chime in here in a little bit. He's been diligently working on some other things. He had a big day yesterday with his LSAT test, and we hold out hope that this time around that here, I didn't cross my fingers very well for the camera. This time around that Kevin realized better results than he did the last time. But, then once again, Kevin is somebody that is very studious. He's very intelligent. He will continue to dial that thing in until he gets the result that he wants. But Speechless, Kevin's going to be here from 3 to 5 doing his show, covering a lot of the material that did drop on Friday. Surprisingly, on Thursday, we were saying slow week. There's not a lot out there. And then, it was the howitzers went off. I mean, it just was boom, 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 boom. Now I get it. There was a major human tragedy in Hawaii. That is big news. The loss of life, over 80 people were taken by these wildfires that came up unexpectedly because of the hurricane winds that were coming in off of shore. Brush fires, lift themselves, and they can devastate. They can overcome a very historical part of the Hawaiian Islands. And so our hearts and our prayers go out to those folks. I'm glad to see that there are relief efforts currently ongoing to help. The devastation, like I said, is just amazing to see the before and after pictures. But our hearts go out to them. The howitzers that went off are not few. They are many. You have the Illinois Supreme Court ruling upholding J.B. Pritzker's unconstitutional. Yes, I said it. I love to borrow that line from Mark Levin. Yes, I said it. That's right. Because it is unconstitutional. This won't pass at the federal courts. The Second Amendment is very clear and has always been upheld. But in the state of confusion, the land of make-believe, we used to be known as the land of Lincoln, but it's no more. J.B. Pritzker has made this the most progressive state. And he's going to continue to do so because he has ambitions to replace Joe Biden. Once he is impeached or he steps aside, does not run for the president. And of course, while he's doing that, he goes out the door pardoning his son, Hunter Biden. And we're going to talk about that because ultimately that's what this special counsel does. It allows Hunter Biden to skate through, at least through this presidential election, a year and a half or so, before we're going to see any true justice brought into this manner of the Biden crime family. It's not going to happen. And we're going to talk more about that on the other side of the break. Once again, we encourage you we can't do it without you, and we can't do it without our sponsors. So stay tuned, listen to what we have to offer, what our sponsors have to offer. We hope that you go out and you definitely give them your business because they believe enough in what we're doing that we continue to be able to offer you content that you're not going to hear anywhere else. We'll be back right after this at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. Okay, here we are, back at it. My eyeballs. I love those little eyeballs. You might have heard that on the radio side of things. I'm looking at my camera that has my eyeballs on it now. It's going to be a good reminder. I think I'm going to leave those up there for everyone to look at. Anybody that sits over here will go, what are those two little zeros? Oh, I see. They've got little eyeballs in them. My beautiful wife did that so I can remember. So Evan across the way does not have to continue to remind me to look at the camera. Now that we're doing this fancy thing called Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Rumble, uh, we appreciate you joining us. Wait a second. I got an from Jim Snyder. What? What, Jim?
No, it's an emoji that we can't see because our software is.
Oh, Jim, you're gonna have to spell it out for us because it's an emoji that we can't see because our software is not sophisticated enough to bring that out. But hey, appreciate you being out there, Jim. Thanks for the text message. Thanks for the chat message. I'll see you out at the picnic here in roughly 2 hours. I just looked at the watch. I got the picnic today. The Republican picnic is cross and a flag. I got it. I got the cross. The flag doesn't come through. It says I just said it says Jesus. Jesus. But thank you, Jim, for the cross and the flag. See, I usually don't do an but now I've got on my mind. But anyhow, the picnic for the Republican Party is being hosted today. Out is it? I don't know if I should disclose that on the open airways. I don't want a bunch of protesters to go out there. No, really, just kidding. I want you to come out there, please. We will feed you. We will invite you in. We will share a meal. We will break bread with you. We will have an open discussion about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I know that could be foreign to you, those three things, but they come from the Constitution of the United States and the Declaration of Independence. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that's what we're supposed to be about. We're supposed to be about a people. The dollar bill, I think, with the eagle and its talons says it all. We have olive branches in one talon and we have arrows in the other. And the eagle is looking towards the olive branch. Why? Because we want peace a chance. And peace comes through strength. We learned that from the Ronald Reagan era. Ronald Reagan positioned us to be the country that the world needs. You know what? I just challenge you to go out and visit some of these other countries and see exactly how they exist. I was fascinated when I was down in Jamaica to realize that there is no conservative movement whatsoever in the country of Jamaica. It is left of left, and left of Santa Claus. I mean, it's amazing. There are three parties down there, but none of them really deal because it's a power struggle, right? The richest of the rich men north of Richmond are the ones who, and they're obviously, I guess it would be north of Montego Bay, but that north of Montego Bay would be the Gulf of Mexico. But yeah, it's that's the way it is the elite running and capturing all of the power. And that's the reason they do it, is so they can lord it over all of us. So I know we're coming back here in a minute. Here I come. It's no longer a slow news week here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I'm David Paul Blumenschein. This is the DPB show. Thank you for tuning in on Sundays from 1 to 3. Obviously, if I'm just sitting here ranting and raving and I'm a noisy gong, well, I guess I wouldn't be around very long. But so far, so good. You have helped me stay on the air going on. I'm going to celebrate my 3rd year. It's hard to believe that we have been doing this now, the DPB show, for 3 years. We came out of the gate. Once again, you've heard my story, but I'm going to give you a little synopsis of it. I ran for office 3 times. I was unsuccessful. The reasons I ran, I think that's important, because I was thinking about this morning as I was taking my morning walk with my St. Bernard Bella, listening to a little scripture in my ear. I was thinking about my opponent and who I ran against for state representative. And ultimately, I think it's funny and fascinating and interesting, all of those things, when it comes to political campaigns. I had nothing personal against my opponent. Many of you know that was Dan Brady. Twice I ran against Dan. I had nothing personal against Dan. In fact, there were times back in the past where my family, Dan's family, we did things, we had kids that were participating in preschool together. We were at different sporting events. That's not what led me to run against Dan Brady. What led me to run against Dan Brady was this. It was simple. I saw back in 2017, especially the impasse between the General Assembly and Governor Rauner. Now, Governor Rauner, mind you, was only governor for 4 years, and he didn't have either side of the aisle, or either side of the assembly, the Senate or the House, backing him. He was a Republican governor up against Mike Madigan. And that's how the scorecard has gone for almost 40 years. It's very rare. We've had some Republican governors, but once again, they're limited and restricted because of the fact that the General Assembly, the legislative branch, the branch that actually creates the laws, they have a stranglehold on the state. But I was running against Dan Brady for the purpose of the fact that since Dan had taken office back in 2001, that's when he started. We had a $4 billion deficit, basically unfunded liabilities. And that blossomed and grew exponentially over the 20 plus years that Dan was a representative. I sensed that, in about year 8 of Dan's tenure, that, wow, things aren't looking good. Bruce Rauner, obviously getting in there was no help at all. In fact, we found out after Bruce's time, Governor Rauner's time, that there really was no movement. We didn't change the trajectory of the state of Illinois one bit whatsoever. But that's the essence of what we face here in Illinois. And I saw that. And all I was wanting to do was ask questions. Why don't we have term limits? Why aren't we working as a united front in the Republican Party to win back more of the General Assembly seats on both sides, the Senate and the House? Why do we continue to go down the same road thinking we're going to get different results? We have the best messaging. We had the best ideas. I mean, we understand, as I was saying before we went to break, and I said it a little bit over the Facebook live feed. You go to another country, venture away from the United States of America. Look at the government that is held, and you don't have to go very far. You can stay right here in the Western Hemisphere. In fact, you can stay right here in North America and the islands just to the south of us. Their governments are controlled by dictators, tyrants. They're socialist. They're communist. Cuba, Jamaica, socialism, democratic socialism, however you want to define it. It's the masses are controlled by the very few. The benefits of what is truly out there and available, as referred to in scripture, the crumbs that fall off the table. That's what the masses are getting. That's what they're fighting for. And while that is happening, those at the top, and it's on both. Once again, I'm under no delusion. It's on both sides of the aisle, the Republicans and the Democrat. We have the elites from the Republican side, just like we have the elites from the Democrat side, the Mitch McConnells of the world who have been in power, in control of the Senate for so many years. Granted, he's the minority, and he's gone back and forth between the majority and the minority leader in the Senate. but they have unbelievable power. And that is demonstrated in the way that they operate, in the deals that they create. Here we have government scientists received over $325 million in royalties from the Chinese and Russia pharma firms. I think that's fascinating when you look at that. In fact, I want to get to that article because I think it's something that, things happen so quickly and there's so much information out there that we lose sight of what is truly making up this craziness, this strife, this confusion that we face in American greatness. That's where the article comes from. It was written by Eric Lendrum on August 10th of 2023. A new report claims that scientists with the National Institutes of Health received at least $325 million in royalties from pharmaceutical companies in Russia and China, as well as other foreign entities over the course of a decade. According to the New York Post, the report was released on Wednesday by the watchdog group openthebooks.com. Thank you, Andrew, Andrew, who heads that up. He's right out of, I think it's Palatine, Illinois. So he's an Illinois boy. It claims that the former NIH director, Francis Collins, and former National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, you might have heard the NIAID, which director was Anthony Fauci, were among those who received payments from foreign governments from September of 2009 to October of 2020. Several of the companies who gave royalties to government scientists subsequently received federal grants and contracts, which has raised concerns about conflicts of interest or pay-to-play schemes. $325 million in royalties. And this is what I think we are starting to understand. I know you understand this. Anyone that listens to our content here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. If you're just joining us here, this is David Paul Blumenshine, the DPB show. But you understand this. You understand everything that I will cover here today in 2 hours, whether that be, why isn't Hillary Clinton under indictment? She basically did the same thing that Donald Trump did. In fact, it's not illegal, but they've deemed it illegal for such a time as this, not a time when they are contesting things, when they are calling Trump an illegitimate president over and over again, and just not Hillary calling him illegitimate, former President Jimmy Carter, also Kamala Harris, Joe Biden himself. Barack Obama was recorded over and over again saying that President Trump will never be the president of the United States. These are the things that you and I are starting to realize, wow, if we're in the wrong, which once again, I want to fully get this out there. If Trump has done something that raises to the level of criminal activity, I want him in jail. Also, if Joe Biden and the Biden crime family, see how I do that? Because I already think it goes without saying. And, I think Bongino hit best when he basically came out and said, "You're right. There's nothing to see here. Let's just kind of just break it down from Bongino. The Democrats are correct. Outside of the bank records, the suspicious activity reports, the wire transfers, the private bank transactions, the LLCs, the texts, the emails, the WhatsApp messages, the photo of Joe with Hunter's business partners, the voicemails to his son, the two business partners saying Joe is the brand, the big guy, the chairman, the two whistleblowers' testimony, the recorded phone calls between Biden and Poroshenko, The video of Joe Biden bragging about firing the Ukrainian prosecutor and Hunter's statements that he's giving his dad half his income, there is no evidence of Joe Biden being involved at all. Once again, here we are. Hillary needs to be indicted. Joe needs to be impeached. If Trump is guilty of criminal activity, he needs to be, held accountable for that, because we're not a two-tier system. We are just Americans. We all abide by the same Constitution. That is the only thing we have. And who is the Constitution? Granted, I know it's a piece of parchment paper, but really, we are the Constitution. We are the people that is referred to in the Declaration of Independence. If we don't hold these folks accountable, whether that be Illinois Supreme Court upholds JB's unconstitutional gun and magazine ban, to even locally, if you see what's happening, we don't hear a lot from him, and I'm glad that he's taking some time off from the airways, especially the being out in front. But Stan Nord, he was somebody that asked questions of those people who are in power on, can we truly do the things we're doing? And as you have seen demonstrated, now that the progressives have control of both city councils, Bloomington, Normal, and they're desperate to get control of the McLean County Board, they are going to run their progressive playbook. That's their goal. And they're going to try to overrun us without accountability. Stan, before leaving, he was trying to point out some of the deficiencies of the town of Normal, whether it was a town or a village, and whether it had the proper elected officials or appointed officials running the town. But yet that was all for naught, right? Because it became a legal battle, which really wasn't. It was more of a kangaroo court. And that's what we're seeing at the federal level. And until you and I get serious about understanding this isn't the place that you and I grew up in, it's changed a lot. And it's time for it to change back. Hey, we're going to be back here to talk about the change that is needed in some of these issues as we see fit. Here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. Don't forget, we're on Facebook. Jump over there, or Twitter, YouTube, or Rumble. But we'll be back right after break. Okay, let me jump back over here. So, it's fascinating about this article in American Greatness, and I encourage you to go out there. It's on our Facebook page right now. You might have to scroll down a few articles where it talks about several of the companies who gave royalties to the government scientists subsequently received federal grants and contracts, which has raised concerns about conflicts of interest or pay-to-play schemes. Collins, for example, received payments from 4 different firms that have received over $50 million from the federal government since 2008. Fauci, meanwhile, claims that he has donated all of his royalties to charity. The documents obtained by Open the Books through a Freedom of Information Act FOIA request revealed that at least 34 different Chinese companies have licensed NIH technology that was funded by you, me, and the American taxpayers. Hey, appreciate you joining us here on Facebook Live. Once again, all of these articles are on our Facebook page that I'm covering today. I am going to, when we come back, I'm going to get into a little bit more of the rivalry between Tom DeVore and Dan Calkins. Obviously, there's a little bit of contention going on there, as we expected. I mean, that's been going on since Dan filed his suit in Macon County. Tom DeVore had 4 temporary restraining orders, or 4 TROs. that he brought together. I think maybe it's 3, and he was hopeful for 4. I'll have to look at that. Some reason I'm thinking it's 4, and I think it might have been only 3. I was on the original TRO. I am being told, I believe Tom DeVore is correct when he said this, that that I am indeed still protected by my TRO. That the latest ruling by the Illinois Supreme Court does not affect my status under the court case that was filed on my behalf by Thomas DeVore. So yeah, it'll be interesting. And here I think no, we're a couple minutes away from coming back. I'm trying to multitask here, so bear with me. Again,
40 seconds.
about 40 seconds. Thank you. I'm typing and doing that. I'm trying to go back to DeVore. I have to cue it up for our next go round here. Don't forget the eyeballs. I got you. Thomas DeVore. There we go. Thomas DeVore. I always like going to his personal page. Okay. Well, Tom DeVore Val is with Kat Peterson. If you are a grassroots candidate and want to be on candidate. Huh. Well, thank you for being here on Sundays from 1 to 3. I am David Paul Blumenshine. This is the DPB show. Obviously, couldn't do it without you. I love being here on Sundays. As I said before here in the past segment, that this is our 3rd year, and it's hard to believe. And I started telling you a little bit about it, and I know I didn't quite finish the story because sometimes in the masses of all the things that come at us in the news dumps on Friday, I find it interesting. We have a strategy session in between Kat, myself, Ty, Alonzo, and Dees, our management here at Great Plains Media, on trying to, navigate everything that's coming at us. And we always say the same thing about the weekend programming. We have the best of all worlds. I mean, it's really T-ball time because what all of our headliners, whether that be Levin, Hannity, Shapiro, Glenn Beck, Dan Bongino, Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins, I mean, they're dealing with it day by day, Monday through Friday. Unfortunately for them, most of the big news happens, around the end of the day on Friday, if not early morning on Friday, which is ahead of most of their programming and most of their content sessions. So and I know from Bongino's standpoint, he likes to give it the 24-hour rule or the 72-hour rule or whatever he likes to do with that, because he doesn't want to comment. We get the opportunity to take advantage of the 24-hour rule because it's dumped on Friday. We get to hear and see all of the rebuttals, the differing opinions of what is dropped. And that's a good position to be in. And that's why I love being on the weekends going into my 3rd year. But as I was saying, I didn't have a time to fully walk out the whole saga of my run for office. I would do it again in a heartbeat, but I will never do it again in a heartbeat for a lot of reasons. And it's what I found out. As I said, I was challenging an incumbent in Dan Brady because I didn't agree that we were going in the right direction. In fact, if you look at the state now versus 20 years ago, it's in obviously not a good state to be in. I say the land of make-believe because we're truly in areas that I don't know how we recover as a state. Well, yes, I do. I do know how we recover. I was on the Bailey campaign, and one of our mottos was this: together with God's help, we can save Illinois. Without God's help, we don't have a prayer because we don't. We've got to be able to exercise our religious freedoms, our religious liberties. We have to lean back into what makes Lincoln, or the land of Lincoln, such a great place. Abraham Lincoln and his philosophies and his policies and how our founding fathers actually put forth this document that guides us. Now we find that everyone and anyone wants to fly in the face of the Constitution of the United States, believing that there is no accountability for that. That's why I ran. I ran not to enrich myself, not to have a position of power, a position of influence. In fact, that's not who I am. In fact, at the heart of the heart, I'm an introvert. I love being alone. I love being with Bella on a good walk in the morning. I love being on my bicycle. I love being with my wife on our bicycles riding, where we're not saying a lot. We're just enjoying, exercising this freedom that we have and that we've been guaranteed through not only our founding fathers, but through the freedom that comes from our faith. Religious freedom, spiritual freedom is more important to me than anything else. As I have said often, no one in their right mind would want to go to Springfield or DC. Obviously, since I ran for office, and knowing that the chances of me overcoming the establishment and the Republican way, as it still unfortunately exists throughout the state of Illinois, that battle's ongoing. And I want to get to that here in this segment. I want to talk a little bit about Tom DeVore and Dan Calkins and the feud they have going on as it pertains to this legislation that was passed by Governor J.B. Pritzker for the unconstitutional gun and magazine ban. But before I get to that, I started pulling up Tom DeVore's Facebook page, and you guys, it's entertaining. Go out there. Tom is a delightful man. He's been on the show many times. Dan is an engaging, interesting person, a state representative, has a lot of good insight. Why the two of them decided to not come together is unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate for the people of Illinois. I think that Tom was very forthright in offering out the ability to come together and join cases because he believed that discovery, it would circumvent more than just this unconstitutional gun ban. It would deal with the way the General Assembly handled issues and items such as this and the government and the governor's executive authority. But before we go to break, real quick, I want to say that on Tom DeVore's page, there's a shout out to Kat, that if you are a grassroots candidate and want to be on Kat's show, email her and make arrangements at katrina@gpmbloomington.com. Tune in to Most Happening Radio host around, Conservative Kat. She's got a little advertisement on Tom DeVore's page right now. It's pretty cool. Monday through Friday is our conservative voice in Kat Peterson, especially if you're running for office. Hey, we've got a lot to cover. Like I said, I'd like to get into deeper this feud that's currently ongoing between Tom DeVore and Dan Calkins and this matter of the Second Amendment. But we're going to do that when we come back here after the top of the hour. Once again, we can't do it without you. We also can't do it without our sponsors. By all means, go out and give them your business. Hey, we'll be back right here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Getting a little dry in studio here today. Kevin is a little dry over there.
I'm just getting work done.
I know you are, Kevin. Kevin, you sound like a college student that is in a frantic state the night before a big exam. But then again, yesterday was a big day for you. You did. And then you still ended up producing Ty's show. And I know Ty's show was lively. I caught part of Ty's show. I hope many of you caught Ty's show. All right, here we go. Texters or chatters, not texters. We have the text line is open, of course, but I'd like the chat room. My friend Sarah, Donovan, Drew are being judged at the State Fair. Hey, all right. Donovan and Drew, is that today, Sarah? Let's see. Some boys are playing with my phone, listening from the Orr building and waiting on judging. Oh, so that is going on right now. Well, hey, we shout out to Donovan and Drew, my co-host on the DPB show. They've both been in studio before, so I'm glad you guys are enjoying the DPB show from the Illinois State Fair. Have you guys got to see the butter cow yet? I noticed that I see that the window was very clean. Governor Pritzker was using a squeegee on the window, cleaning it off. I don't know if he completed the job. They only showed it was one pass. So it's hard to say what happened there, but I will be down to the state fair on Thursday. I'll also be there Tuesday night. Well, right now, tentatively planning on being at REO Speedwagon as soon as you are able, and I am willing to just roll with the changes, turn some pages. I am finding it interesting. I'm trying to get into I think this is Tom DeVore's page, but it seems like it's been overrun by a lot of people. I don't know if I've got the right page. Let's try it again. Yeah, this is Tom's page. There's a lot of folks that pivot off of Tom's page. Oh, there it is. Tom will discuss the impact of the Calkins Supreme Court ruling on our case. And that's what we're going to cover when we come back here after the top of the hour is the Illinois Supreme Court upholds JB's unconstitutional gun and magazine ban. I always like to throw in unconstitutional because I do believe that when this reaches the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, that it will be ruled unconstitutional. But that's okay because, see, like Hunter Biden's special counsel, that investigation will not be completed before the election of 2024. Sound familiar? Laptop was not brought out into the airways until after the 2020 election, even though the FBI was in possession of it a year before the election of 2020. It's amazing how those things happen. Uh, it's funny. I love reading through the comments. I know many of you do. If you go out to Tom's page, it gets a little heated. Once again, Tom is very animate. He's been on this show many times explaining the rationale, the reasoning behind why he was doing what he was doing with the different cases, and then merging the cases together with the temporary restraining orders, and hoping that he could get Dan Calkins, Representative Dan Calkins, and his group or his attorney to join in on their lawsuits because it would have just, I think, made it even more powerful. Uh, Especially as it came to discovery, because ultimately that's what the Supreme Court ruled on, was what work had been done and who was truly wronged in this lawsuit. And that's what kind of came out from those who found in favor of Governor Pritzker and upholding his unconstitutional gun ban. Hey, how many of you out there? Republican Day at the State Fair is Thursday. Yes, it is, Joanne. I just mentioned that. Thank you for putting that up there. There is a picnic on the lawn. I think they have a special name for it. I forget it. I don't think it's the governor's lawn, but it is held there every year. The 17th is the date of August 17th. And there are tickets available if you'd like to journey down to the Republican Day at the State Fair. I know it's a great day, always is. I will be there on Thursday. Just seeing the butter cow. The case is clean, so they keep it clean. I mean that is important, especially when you got the butter cow. JB's always with the squeegee. It's his job now. Oh, you just meant JB, the butter cow. Oh, touche. Oh, touche. Oh, Obviously, those of you listening out there to Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal, you can't see me on Facebook. I hope you can, especially if you're listening on the radio. Don't do that. Yeah, Kevin's pointing. Don't forget your eyeballs. I wanted to look at that. But I was actually, Kevin, looking because I just sat down. So I had to make sure that I was in screen for those folks that are viewing us on Rumble, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Don't forget the chat is always open. Appreciate you. But the text line is also open at 309-451-9299. 309-451-9299. Obviously, we can't do it without you. Appreciate you and your support. Definitely click on the subscribe to those platforms of social media. We also have a app out there. You can go to cities929.com. And you can listen to us. You can stream us wherever you're at. You don't have to necessarily be in Bloomington Normal. You can be beyond. You can be on vacation in Florida. We have listeners that listen to us from Tennessee, from California. Believe it or not, there's not everybody's out there is a fruit and nut. I did that, Kevin? Yeah, you like that. But yeah, no, you can catch us here. We love to hear from you. Appreciate all of you that are chatting away. Sarah, Joanne, Jim, thank you. Always appreciate you guys listening in. So much to cover as I open up the show today. Usually it's pretty, I should say, usually it happens almost to the T. There's hardly a week that goes by when you think that at the beginning of the week, because my show isn't Monday through Friday. That's Kat's show, right? Kat has to hit it every day. She has to take it as it comes. And it was definitely a slow news week this week, but most weeks are kind of like that until Friday. Friday comes and then suddenly shazam, kaboom, everything happens all at once. And this week was definitely no different. We didn't know where we were going to go. We were talking about a couple other stories that seem to pale now. Of course, not the horrific fire on the Hawaiian island of Maui. That in of itself, the devastation, the human devastation, the death toll, our hearts. And hopefully some of you are contributing to the relief causes of those people uh, on the Hawaiian Islands. We know Kat Peterson had close acquaintances who were actually involved in it and had to seek refuge in the ocean from the fire. And the devastation is out there on social media land. The before and after pictures are it's purely catastrophic. And it shows you the force of fire, especially when you have wind and brush fires and how that can overtake forest communities, residential communities. It's terrible. And I know that we're coming into the wildfire season again, just like we are in the hurricane season now. It's natural disasters. And if we believe what they tell us from the left side of the aisle, that it's an existential threat, according to Joe Biden and J.B. Pritzker and even Chris Coos, our local mayor here, that climate change is the greatest challenge that we face. And unfortunately, I'm not buying it. And a lot of people aren't buying it because the climate is always changing. And no different than they told us that the coronavirus and masking and vaccine. I mean, it is hard to believe you people, the same people that were pushing the craziness or still are pushing the craziness of the indictment of President Trump, even though Hillary Clinton did the very same thing. Those are the same people that are trying to head this up, to spearhead this movement of climate change, of green energy, of open borders, of continuous wars in Ukraine, of you name it, fill in the blank. It just is ongoing forever and ever. This is how they operate because they need the strife. They need the chaos. They need the fear and anxiety in your heart and in others' hearts because that's how they can control you. And it is all about control when it comes to DC and Springfield. And unfortunately, we have a lot of Republicans who are caught up in that very same thing. And, even on our side of the aisle, we have contention going on. And that is pointed out. And as I shared with you to get to it, Tom DeVore was covering this in a day ago. He did a Facebook Live where he went over to discuss what the court ruling was at the Supreme Court level. It was a 4-3 decision, 2 dissenting votes, and then 1 separate dissenting vote. So it was a 4-3 decision that upheld Governor J.B. Pritzker's unconstitutional gun and magazine ban. And Tom DeVore is besides himself in this video, and I encourage you to go out to Tom's page. It was about a day ago. He's already had a whole lot of people commenting on it, and he's had 1.9 thousand views on this video. But there's the other attorney that has helped Tom through these cases and representing the people of Illinois. As Tom has said often, he told Representative Calkins, Dan, that Dan, come with us. We can do this. If you go alone, you can go faster. But if you go together, you can go stronger. You can go, you will win. The chances of winning coming together. Unfortunately, Dan and his attorney decided to go it alone. And unfortunately, none of us were cheering against it. We were hoping that the Supreme Court would just do what the United States Supreme Court is going to do. And I do believe that. But unfortunately, it didn't end up that way. And now Tom has assured me, Tom DeVore, I am, just full disclosure, I am part of the first case that was filed by Tom DeVore on behalf of the people of Illinois against Governor Pritzker's unconstitutional gun ban. I am still protected by a temporary restraining order. So the ruling of the Supreme Court does not encompass the cases that were represented by Tom DeVore and his associate. But so I'm currently now, whether a federal firearm licensed dealer is willing to still sell to me, that's yet to be seen. Unfortunately, like I said, and you can see it in the comments section on Tom's page, and hear it in Tom's voice during the video, how he has a plan that he can see another avenue, and that doesn't surprise me. Tom is very astute. Obviously, he navigates these things very well. I encourage you, once again, don't listen to me, because Tom does a much better job of hitting upon these points and handling that. But getting back to my point, Republicans in contention. Tom DeVore ran as a Republican for Attorney General. Dan Calkins is a Republican state representative. As I mentioned, leading up to my show here on Cities 92, I ran for office against a Republican during a primary. Primaries are important. Primaries are a way that we have these discussions. Unfortunately, in this matter, it behooves us to work together. This isn't a primary. They're not running. Tom DeVore and Dan Calkins are not running for the same political office. In fact, one's a state rep, one ran for attorney general. One has sued and won over the governor already. And he would have won, I believe. I still think he's going to win over the governor. And Dan Calkins' case might make it to the Supreme Court. I know that they're deliberating about that, whether they move on to the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, or just let the decision hold and let Tom DeVore's cases raised to the level of the Illinois State Supreme Court, and then eventually the United States Supreme Court, if need be. But this contention amongst Republicans, this is mind-boggling to me. Once again, I support primaries, especially primaries where there is a noticeable difference between the candidates. Right now in the state of Illinois, there is a grassroots movement that I believe came about because of Darren Bailey and his run for governor. I believe that grassroots movement is very powerful. Unfortunately, there is still the establishment side of the aisle, which seems to be very warm and fuzzy with the Democrat side of the aisle, because they continue to try to appease and compromise, and that's never going to work. The chasm is just too great. I said it last week that the only way I believe that this is truly going to come together is symmetry, and whether that be a third party or that be that we start holding them accountable to the same rules that they put forth. That's why I bring up Hillary Clinton. Why is she not under indictment? There's a great article from Front Page, and the author is Greenfield, where he talks about what steps you right through 2016 and Hillary Clinton doing everything. This is what I'm saying. When is Hillary going to be indicted? When is the Biden family going to be held responsible? We know that isn't going to be anytime soon, because now with the special counsel being appointed by Merrick Garland, the same individual that gave the old sweetheart deal to Hunter Biden, and then, of course, the judge, a very astute judge, saw right through that and said, "Wait a minute, this is not what it appears to be." He basically gets immunity the rest of his life. No, but ultimately, we all know what's going to happen. Hunter Biden is going to be pardoned by his father. In fact, I haven't verified this, but I actually heard something, and I hope it was just in gist, but I don't know if you heard about this, Kevin. Vivek said that he might pardon Hunter Biden. And I don't want to make a rash judgment about Vivek's comment because I didn't hear it with my own ears. And I don't know if he was just being a little tongue in cheek with it, but Hunter Biden's going to be pardoned. Donald Trump is not going to serve one day in jail. Neither is Hillary Clinton. Neither is Joe Biden. Neither is Barack Obama. Neither is Merrick Garland. Neither is Majorcas, or whatever his name is. Mayorkas, Kevin, thank you. Mayorkas. That name just throws me every time. But these guys are not going to serve time. They're just not. And unfortunately, right now, there is no symmetry. There is no holding accountable on that side. Fast forward a little bit to where we're at in the state of Illinois, in this whole dispute between DeVore and Calkins, between the Illinois GOP and the grassroots. That the picnic that's on Thursday down at the Illinois State Fair, I'm bringing my popcorn because it's entertaining, because we haven't moved the needle, because we have not found the ability to work together to become a unified force. You know, more counties in the state of Illinois are controlled by Republicans than Democrats. Now, granted, they're not populated counties by any means, but they are a good land mass. I mean, it's like 80 plus counties are Republican counties. And yet we are at such a disadvantage in Springfield. Now, granted, I understand that is dictated by the population on how the legislative districts are drawn and mapped, and the Senate districts, legislative districts, both House and Senate. And we have a run on the table when it comes to statewide held offices. In fact, at the U.S. level, the federal level, I should say, you know, we have 17 congressional districts. We only have 3 Republican congresspeople. So that means there's 14 Democrat congressional positions that are held by, that are, I should say, 14 districts are held by Democrats. Our 2 United States senators are held by Democrats. Our Secretary of State is a Democrat. Our treasurer is a Democrat. Our comptroller is a Democrat. Our auditor is a Democrat. Our attorney general is a Democrat. Our governor is a Democrat. Our lieutenant governor, of course, goes hand in hand, is a Democrat. We're not going to overcome the Democrat juggernaut by compromising with them. That's not the game we need to play. We need to come together. We need to all sit around maybe and listen to Oliver Anthony's song, Rich Men North of Richmond, because that's what it's going to take. Hey, we're going to be back here, and we want to continue this conversation about all things that create the strife that we have here in Illinois. We've been talking about corruption for going on 3 years, and it's not going to go away. I'm not going to be out of a job soon, but I couldn't be in this position without you, and I so do appreciate you joining us here every Sunday at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I'm going to, don't mind me as I jump up and get in your face on the camera there, but that was bothering me that the top of my head looked like I was just a little guy in this chair. And I'm not the very big guy by any means, but it made me appear that I was just a little guy. So, okay. Yes, I did try to reach out just for you out there in Facebook land. And once again, subscribe, like, hit the chat room. Appreciate it. Sarah Froberg, I'm interested in the explanation of why the Macon County case was pushed through. You know, it's so sad, Sarah, and I know you know this because you were on the campaign trail with us in the Bailey campaign. There are very few people that are out there to represent the taxpayers, to represent the working class people. Most of the people out there are really trying to leverage power, control. I heard the rumors, and I'm not going to repeat those here on air. I'm friends with Dan Calkins. I'm friends with Tom DeVore. I don't get caught up in the he said, she said. It doesn't amount to anything. It hasn't moved the needle one bit. We can talk about all the history of Illinois, but history is history. It's the past. What is happening right now, and this opportunity that lies ahead of us. And granted, I think it is that we have to have these disagreements. I know that there are going to be contested races in the primary, and that's important. I mean, it's important that we have contested primaries so we can get to the bottom of this. And I know that there isn't a lot of funding. Unfortunately, the funding sources have left the state. They took off. So inside baseball. So I'm going to be back here in a second. Here I come. Hey, I so appreciate you joining us here on Sundays on the DPB show from 1 to 3. I can't do it without you. Those that are in the chat room right now on Facebook Live, so appreciate you and everyone that tunes in to not only the radio side, but to Twitter, Facebook, Rumble, YouTube. Continue to like and subscribe as we continue to try to grow these platforms, because it's critical. Because, like I've said before, there's not a lot of us out there. Unfortunately, people don't want to venture into this. One of the things that I wanted to cover when we came back from break is this, and I probably will do it. I'll carry it over after the bottom of the hour. Is this: when we look at the makeup of the current power structure of the Republican Party in the state of Illinois, and the strife and the friction and the contention, as it's demonstrated in the DeVore Calkins battle that's going on. I have to be forthright. I'm friends with both of those guys. it amazes me how we get hung up in the past. It amazes me how we fight over offices that aren't even really contest because they're going to be a Republican held office. But the one thing that we continue to avoid is coming together to realize what lies ahead, what faces us as Illinoisans. I mean, we're not going to compromise. We're not going to be able to legislate ourselves out of this disastrous condition that we find ourselves in. We are fiscally and morally bankrupt in the state of Illinois. Now, you're not going to hear that from JB. In fact, go out to his social media page, go out to Twitter. JB is rainbows and unicorns. And I have to say that I borrowed that statement from my wife. It is all rainbows and unicorns. And everything is coming up roses to JB. The state's never been better off than under the administrative rule of JB Pritzker. Surprise, surprise. There's no humility in the man whatsoever, because he can't be honest. He can't be forthright. Darren Bailey said it correctly. When this man doesn't know how to tell the truth, Darren had to take him to court to answer one question and one question only. Does JB have the executive authority to continue to lock down the citizens, the taxpayers, the business owners of Illinois? And he doesn't. A judge finally ruled that. So the similar judge that finally ruled the mask mandate in the public school system, masking our children. These things are all interrelated, and they're all interrelated to the power struggle that exists. And it's not just Illinois, mind you. I know there are other dark blue states out there that are battling through this. Unfortunately, I kind of get a little, I'm not going to say envious, because I'm not an envious person, because I want to deal with the situations that are directly in front of me day to day. It is nice, though, to visit other states where the General Assembly is flipped, meaning there are super majorities on the Republican side. And equally, once again, that's a great responsibility that you have when you are in a majority rule. You still have to represent everyone. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And I think it's what we the people find so disingenuous, that these politicians, these elected officials, they just don't represent us. This gentleman, Oliver Anthony, if you haven't heard his song, Google it. I'm not going to play it here. We haven't been able to find a real good cut of it. But Oliver Anthony talks about it. A clean cut. Clean cut. I'm sorry. Kevin's correcting me. Clean cut. Did I say clear cut? Not a good cut. They're good cuts. They're not clear. Clean. Clear. One of those two things. Richmond, north of Richmond. You've got to go out and listen to it. It is well worth a couple minutes. It's not a very long song. It's about 3 minutes in length, but definitely it's rocketed to the top of all of the charts. In fact, he's got 3 out of the top 10 songs, downloadable songs out there on the electronic means, or the digital means of downloading. So go out, listen to Oliver Anthony and the song that he sings, because he's telling the truth. It's from his heart. He is smart enough to realize that enough is enough. And I think that the silent majority has finally awoken to that. Hey, we're going to be back here to wrap up the show with our final segment. When we come back, we can't do it without you, and we can't do it without our advertisers. So please support all of those companies that support the programming here at Great Plains Media. We'll be back right after this here on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. It's one more long one. One more long one, one more short one. But it's one more half hour. That's what I meant to say. Didn't mean to cut my show short today. I am going to take a little bit of this H2O. I'm probably going to stand up for my last two segments, my last half hour, to get the blood flowing. I find when I sit down that the blood does not flow as well. You guys are probably aware of that. Oh, texting. Here we go. Well, it's coming up roses for him. He's taking in the money for abortion and gender affirming. Yeah. I mean, that's the saddest thing about the state of Illinois. And my wife and I talk about this often. Our taxpayer dollars are going to fund. Hold on for a second. Since I'm standing, I want to move the camera back up. Kevin's going to do it because he needs to dial me in. I think it's good, Kevin. I think I'm good, right? Oh, there we go. Okay. But our taxpayer dollars are going to fund abortions, which from a religious perspective, getting back to my religious freedoms that are provided to me by the Constitution of the United States and the First Amendment, my religious freedoms are under attack, as are yours. If you don't believe that your tax dollars should go to fund the killing of innocent life, that's what we're looking at here. But that is in of itself the number one issue I think we face. Now, granted, we have the sanctuary state status, which allows taxpayer dollars to be used for people who are not legal citizens of the United States of America, meaning they haven't gone through the legal channels to become such. That's whether you believe our immigration laws are just or not. I believe that they need to be tightened up. I think that the process of becoming a citizen of the United States of America shouldn't be as rigorous as it is, because I think it definitely benefits people not to have it working in a manner that is efficient, and that's unfortunate. I saw one earlier here. Let's see. You had asked a question. Yes, it is very important to have primaries. Yes, I see Pam. Thank you, Pam, for joining us today. Thank you, everyone else who has tuned in to the Facebook side of things. Definitely like and subscribe. Appreciate your comments. Appreciate you guys joining us on Sundays, the DPB show. Big news week. I am going to kind of wrap it up or wrap it around again. Or in the immortal words of Jen Psaki, I'm going to circle back a little bit just to highlight some of the things that not everyone has been able to hear today, because I know many of you are in and out of your vehicles, you're in and out of doing housework on this weekend. And you might not have heard everything, but I think some of the top stories that have been dropped after hours. No, I want to get to that. That is the Florida impeachment. I got to pull that up. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. It's right here. I have it. Exclamation point, question mark. I want to get to it.
Next time when you send me like your headline, that should be like the first story you cover.
Yeah. Did I send you impeachment was my first one? I noticed that you did that.
When I asked you what it was, that was the first article you sent.
Oh, was it the first article? Oh, okay. I also almost think like I've reached the big time. I heard Dan Bongino the other day having an argument with some of his staff on air, of course, as Bongino does it. One of the best in the business out there. But Kevin and I are having a little discussion. He said, "Hey, have you covered the impeachment thing yet?" And I said, "It's on my little white paper here." And you're right, I haven't gotten to it, Kevin. And he goes, "Well, that's what I advertised it as today's show." Well, it is impeachment. And I still have, according to you, Kevin, I still have 2 segments. So I think I'm going to get it done. But the impeachment, I kind of I didn't really go right after it, but I think I need to. And the impeachment of Joe Biden, obviously, there is a movement within the House to bring impeachment charges. Obviously, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and now some other representatives from Florida are really pushing impeachment. Why is that, Kevin? Why do you think they want us to impeach Joe Biden at this time? There's a distinct rationale and reasoning behind it. It'll never happen over the course of the next year. I think everybody realizes that the next year and a half, the impeachment would not reach its pinnacle. But what it would do is give us a symmetrical defense to the indictment of Trump, right? Because ultimately, if you're going to continue to indict Trump, because there's only one reason they continue to bring charge after charge after charge, and then the scheduling of the hearings, lining up with the Iowa caucuses and going through the early pivotal states of the primary states, is to try to. They don't want to run against Trump. There's no question about it. And anybody that believes that they want to run against Trump, then they just haven't been tuned in long enough. But I encourage you to go out there and see this for yourself, because there's plenty of information out there. But that's why I believe, Kevin. What is your belief?
Well, I mean, there's a few things. First off is, while there are Republicans that are pushing for impeachment, there are Republicans that are also pushing against impeachment. This last week, Mitch McConnell warned House GOP.
He said Republicans.
Well,
Okay.
by name, he is a Republican.
Okay. Yeah.
Mitch McConnell warned House GOP members on Biden impeachment, saying that it would not be good for the country. He said 2 years ago, this is him quoting, he said, "I said 2 years ago, when we had not one but two impeachments, that once we got down this path, it incentivizes the other side to do the same thing." I kind of agree with him in the fact that, yes, we have been incentivized to do it, as the Democrats have consistently pushed to have meaningless impeachments and indictments against Trump. However, that's not a reason not to now indict Biden, considering the fact that there is much more evidence, mounting evidence consistently, as you listened earlier in the show, on corruption, on potential corruption charges against Joe Biden and his family. And so I would not.
Can criminal
warn
charges
against.
be brought against the sitting president? That was the conversation against Trump, right?
That was a consistent conversation. My thing is, you don't even need to, because the reason for impeachment in the Constitution, in Article 1, I believe, is where, maybe it's Article 2, but I think it's Article 1 is where the ideas of impeachment are listed, and it's incredibly vague. It just says high crimes and misdemeanors. And that's like anything, like, what is a high crime or misdemeanor? Like, I mean, you can define a misdemeanor, but what is a high crime? Like Bill Clinton was impeached not for having.
I don't think it was high crimes.
Relations.
Yeah, high crimes. Bills were not high crimes.
His was just lying under oath.
That's
perjury.
Right.
So
yeah, what the Biden family has done, if all the reporting is correct, that would be considered to the level of high crimes and treason, and partly because you're selling out the people. Once again, it always comes back to we the people. Anytime you're confused about who is represented in a constitutional republic, it is the people. I know I've pointed this out. I'm going to go back to it again, but that's why Oliver Anthony, I think, gave this battle cry song out there, Richmond.
Yeah,
I want
to go back to the treason thing, because this is the thing that I think Democrats screw up all the time, is they go for charges or like trying to drum up things, because like they might sound in a way sexy, like so when it comes to treason, like, do I think that Joe Biden's actions might have been treasonous? Yes. But do I think that's what you should try to charge him with? God, no. I think you should try to charge him with things like abuse of power. Because abuse of power is something you can easily prove. Treason is kind of harder to prove, because it's the crime of betraying one's country. You have to actively show that he was betraying the country. And while I think that he was, you need to be able to convince.
I think, you don't have to convince anybody, right? Because impeachment is ruled upon by the House and the Senate.
Okay, I wasn't sure if we were still talking about the criminal, because you just said, could you bring criminal charges against the sitting president?
Can you bring criminal charges against the sitting president? First and foremost, going back to the impeachment itself is going to it's never going to pass the Senate, right? We know that right now. However, that's why I go back to the special counsel that's currently been seated by Merrick Garland and David Weiss, however you want to say his name. That's going to run the clock out on the limits of statute, and it's intentional. Joe Biden will pardon Hunter Biden before he leaves office. I don't believe Joe Biden will be the Democrat nominee in Chicago in 2024. Impeachment itself, I think, levelizes the playing field. If you, as I led off, and I know that impeachment was kind of the bigger topic that you promoted on our Facebook page, but it really is, where is the indictment for Hillary? Now, granted, Hillary's not the president, but if you look at the timeline between Obama to Hillary to Joe Biden, or Obama Biden to Hillary to now Biden all of by himself, no one has been held accountable for their actions. And yet they have impeached Trump twice. Twice. And those folks haven't realized. And so that's why I believe that it is an equalizer. And ultimately, we're not going to ever get back to a place where I believe that we're going to see harmony and peace amongst the two political parties. That's why I also believe that a third party is going to have to come into play. And that might happen here in this next election cycle. But at the very least, let's start treating both parties equally. Meaning, if we're going to indict people for crimes or treason, which is kind of what they're going after Trump for in this J6 thing, is overthrowing the government, right? Then let's do it on both sides equally. It's equal justice, the equal application of the law. And we don't see that in today's society. And not everybody, and I believe, that's this public outcry you're having. Rolling Stone was quick to jump on Oliver Anthony's song saying that we far right extremists finally have an anthem. No, we have a lot of good songs that come out of desperate times or tough times, create good music. I think one of the leadoff songs for the Trump rallies, and I'm proud to be an American, is a great song by a gentleman that wrote that during a time, of duress, for this country. The country itself, I mean, I don't have to tell you, if you think you're better off today than you were 4 years ago, please comment, tell me how that is. I don't know how it is that we're better off. In fact, the trajectory that I see is it's not good. It's not good, especially in the state of Illinois. Locally, as I've always said, McLean County has managed, because there is enough sanity and common sense, especially from our agribiz community, the outlying areas of Bloomington Normal. Now, granted, there's been an infiltration and indoctrination of this social movement, this collective movement in Bloomington and Normal. Hence the reason we have a makeup as we do on our city councils, that this progressive movement has arrived here in Bloomington Normal. I'm hopeful that we don't lose the county board, and I hope we do recapture the days of the town of Normal with the zero-based budget. That's how they used to operate. I also believe that the city of Bloomington was in a relatively good financial position until things like the Coliseum were raised, not raised, but built. I know a lot of people would like to see it raised. I know that we've always been very good about attracting business. Rivian, obviously, is the most recent company that has come as a major player. State Farm, Country Companies are here, Illinois Wesleyan, Illinois State. But we don't want to lose that flavor. I was thinking of this, Kevin. My daughter was just given her PIN to be a registered nurse through the Bachelor's of Science, Accelerated Bachelor's of Science nursing program at Illinois State University. I happened to go to Edwards Hall and was in the Capon Auditorium.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't spent a lot of time there when I was a student at ISU back in the late 80s, early 90s. But one of the things that I was captivated by in my head as I walked the campus, and I haven't spent a lot of time walking, I usually ride my bike through the campus, is this. At one time when I was attending ISU in the late 80s, it was a conservative university. And I know I've said that on this show before, but it's fascinating to see how quickly we have moved from conservative to a very liberal, radical, progressive state of existence, not only in our educational system, but in our state government. Things have really changed, and I've sat back and watched, which is part of the reason that I got involved politically. It's part of the reason that I am behind the microphone here at Cities 92, and now, of course, on Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, and YouTube, is because of this dissent. I knew we were going down. I mean, we took full. I mean, and it's been gradual. Once again, it wasn't like we hit an iceberg like the Titanic. This has been very subtle, very methodical, very measured. When you look at the former mayors of the town of Normal, the former mayors of Bloomington, for the most part, they were conservatives, conservative minded. And then you look at what has happened over the last 20 years, not only in the General Assembly in Springfield, but here locally in our own marketplace area. And unfortunately, we sit on the doorstep of losing our McLean County board. We have a big opportunity to have a 12-8, 11-9 advantage in this upcoming 2024 election. And I think that's critical. I think that 2024 election on the national spectrum is the biggest election. In fact, as much as I applaud those who are adamant about when we say all politics is local, we're not necessarily talking about local elections. We're talking about bringing the flavor of the United States, the federal government, to the local level. And that's what has happened here locally. And we got to turn that back. We've got to turn that tide back, because at this rate, it doesn't look good. 2024 is the most important election year in the history of this country. I know it's no secret where I stand on the presidential nomination. I'm a Trump guy. I've always been a Trump guy. I always will be a Trump guy. I'm very long on the United States, especially with the candidates that we have upcoming, whether it's Kristi Noem, Carrie Lake, Vivek, Ron DeSantis, Tim Scott. I mean, we got a plethora of good upcoming candidates that will continue beyond the 4 years of Trump. But if we have 4 more years of Democrat rule, Katie barred the door. It does not look. Hey, we're going to wrap up the show here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. When we come back after break here, so stay with us. We'll get to the heart of the matter, and I'll try wrapping up the impeachment thing to make sure I do just to that. We'll talk to you after on the other side of break. Okay. Quickly looking into the chat. Thank you, Pam, for the encouragement. You're always there to encourage. It was 78 to 82, and it was a very conservative. Oh, yes, you're right, Pam. Especially 78 to 82. I'm sure that ISU definitely took on that flavor. I knew some of those professors there, whether it was in chemistry, biology, the business, especially in the business school, even, believe it or not, in the School of Psychology. I mean, it was moderate for the most part. We had an organizational psychology department, so one of those professors happens to no longer be there, but still resides here in the Normal area. She was pretty dynamic as a very strong conservative person. Actually was a conservative woman teaching industrial organizational psychology at Illinois State University. So yes, it saddens me to see that's the state of our universities, but ultimately Trump's got a plan to that. I encourage everybody to go out and look at Agenda 47. It's out on the internet, and it steps you through what his plan is for higher education, especially at the university and college level. So, I saw that that was reported, Pam. What about Trump not being allowed in the ballot on blue states? You know, I, well, the news happened, not news happening. Bloomington Normal News kind of reported that. And I don't know what the rationale is behind that. I don't believe that that is the case. Um, who knows? I mean, anything's possible, though. I'm not going to rule it out. I mean, I don't know how they keep him, constitutionally, I don't know how they keep him off of the ballot if he goes through systematically the Federal Elections Commission through the process of filing all of the reports and has organized his delegates throughout all those states. I don't know how they keep him off. He's going to be on the ballot in Illinois. I don't know how they keep him off the ballot. Yeah, yeah, Pam, as I'm back already. I was just answering a chatter. I'm in the chat room on City's 92.9 Facebook page. Join us there. We always appreciate you guys that are in the chat room. We also have our text line is open 309-451-9299. 309-451-9299. That is the text line. But as I said, we've expanded to Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. Encourage you to go there, like, subscribe, share with everyone because we're going to continue to bring this content. Chatter was asking about, our friend Pam was asking about this, that she's hearing that Trump isn't going to be allowed to be on the ballot in blue states. I don't think that's the case. I think that, my involvement with the Trump organization, I'm certain that I would have heard something about that. I know Kevin has pulled something up uh,
Yeah,
on the internet.
I found something on the Hill very quickly. There's like two civil rights organizations that are launching a campaign to pressure state governments to disqualify President Trump from appearing on ballots in 2024. The main states it looks like they're going after is California, Oregon, Colorado, and Georgia. They are basically just going to try to pressure secretaries of states into not allowing it because of something they claim is in the 14th Amendment. But from everything I'm seeing, it's a fringe group that's trying to make a headline.
Well,
It's not going to do anything.
and ultimately, that's where you would attack it is through the Secretary of States. That's what they have done in the past. That's what 2020's election was about. Was they found these Secretary of States that were sympathetic to changing some of the rules at the last minute, even though Supreme Court Justice Alito ruled to say, "Hey, let's not do that. We're not going to do that. I will rule against you if you do that." But unfortunately, as the justice system moves, it takes you till 2023 until you start realizing that these ballot dumps, which they call them, or registration dumps. I mean, it's going to go on and on and on as we piece more of this together. But no, Trump is going to be on the ballot in Illinois. Trump is going to be on the ballot throughout the country, 50 states. And ultimately, really, in California and Oregon, he's not going to win those states anyway. So uh, those aren't the states we really need to be focused on. We want a, a presidential candidate on the Republican side to win the general election. And if that's DeSantis, so be it. If that's Trump, so be it. If that's Vivek, so be it. Tim Scott, so be it. Those who I believe actually have a viable, credible chance to be there are those four. I don't see the others as viable candidates at this point. That could change, I don't foresee it changing. I think that based on the excitement of what, there's an article out there. I put it up on Cities 92.9's Facebook page. Trump steals the show in Iowa. Go out and look the coverage around the state fair yesterday. First and foremost, and the Trump way of doing things, he showed up with a flyover of the state fair, which Once again, that's pure Trumpian, right? This is what he does. He did it at a football stadium too. He did it at the Indianapolis 500. He did it at Daytona for the race. I think it creates great excitement. But everywhere he went throughout the state fair yesterday, now many of those folks who are not who are anti-Trump, whether that be Democrat, liberal, or Republican or libertarian, they want to point out that he was only there for 47 minutes. I find it ironic that he is running for the 47th president of the United States. So 47 minutes sounds like a good number to me. I don't know. I didn't have the stopwatch on him. He is running for president, so there's probably a lot of places that he needs to get to. Um, he has been to Iowa. I have personally been there with him in Iowa, at Council Bluffs, Iowa. I happened to be one of his drivers for his motorcade in Council Bluffs for the Farmers for Trump, a rally that was held in Council Bluffs, Iowa. So I know that he's working it, as are many of the other campaigns. There's a lot of places they have to be. Um, and primaries are good. Once again, I'm not going to say that we shouldn't have primaries. Now, in certain instances where I think that primaries are senseless is especially when we are not going to have a race for the general. And so, even though I still think it's important to put conservative candidates in office, I think it's kind of futile to waste resources in races where we're not going to have a contested race when it comes to the general election. We could be utilizing those resources because ultimately we've lost a lot of the big players, that contributed to campaigns here in the state of Illinois. Those monies have gone away. In some instances, I think it's good. As much as I appreciate funding of campaigns, I don't think Ken Griffin and his organization Citadel did any real good cause for the conservative movement in the state with this last election cycle. Dick Uihlein, I know, has said that he's going to back off a little bit, but we need people. Uh, Money is important, but people showing up at the polls and participating in the electoral process is the most important thing. Hey, I'm going to be back next week. I hope you stick around to listen to Kev. I know he's been working on a big show across the way for Speechless. He's coming up next. I'm on my way out to see Justice Holder White at the Republican picnic. I look forward to seeing many of you there. Until next week, we just wish you peace and happiness and prosperity out there in the listening audience, and look forward to seeing you next week.